among others, countries, including the one we're in and others
You're
around
deflecting.
the Gulf
Before we got to
Let's
Syria,
face
we
it,
had
that
Iraq, we had Libya, we had many
countries in this
instances.
neck of the woods were much more involved in the Syrian civil war than my country was.
Well, you're also
so do you want to
pouring
take some
money at it, aren't you?
responsibility for that? Do you want to take more refugees here in Qatar? Do you want to take more in the Gulf?
No.
What percentage of burqas in this area becomes like not that pleasant for everyone else?
But again, is it all down to burqas? Because again, you're not asking people with other traditions whether they care about the sight of people drinking alcohol or going up in bikinis. Again, it's a very
we could in Britain
Western-centric viewpoint.
I'm not. I have to say, you're going to bark up the wrong tree if you think you're going to persuade a Brit that we should stop drinking alcohol because of people arriving in our country. I mean, that's not going to happen. These things are all a bit of give and take.
You bring your own traditions that don't quite fit with theirs.
Well,
they don't.
Yeah, there are, as I said, and before we got all confrontational, which you did from the get-go, I said what the problem is here is that these things are all rubbing against each other. And in that situation, you have to work out what things you're willing to give up, which things you're willing to compromise on, and which ones you're not. You're not going to persuade the Brits to massively change their culture. But let me just make the point. Every single society has certain aspects of it it doesn't want to give up. This one will. In Qatar, this one will. Everyone does.
What's up, YouTube? Hope you guys are feeling good. Today, guys, we're back giving to new video, guys. Today, we're going to be checking out Qatar hosts defends Muslim immigration. This is by Douglas Morrill. This is going to be good. I would love to check the video out with you guys. Let's get right into today's video, guys.
The developing world cannot move to the developed world. You seem to conveniently forget that the developed world moved to the developing world without asking permission.
No, I don't.
It seems to me as well that this is a particularly Western-centric viewpoint, and a misleading one at that, because you know as well as I do, and the figures show it, 85% of the world's refugees, in fact, settle in neighboring countries in the Middle East, in Africa and Asia. They do not rush over to Europe.
Sure. You'd make a big mistake if you think I hadn't heard of colonialism.
You don't seem to address it in any way.
I'd also suggest, by the way, that I don't know how long we're going to go on about colonialism for. I'm happy to do it as long as you like. But let me just.
Don't we have to be factful, though? Don't we have to be?
But also, don't think, if I may say so, that colonialism was just a Western thing. What was one of the largest and most significant empires in history, but the Ottoman Empire? Do we say that Turkey has to do something like the West to deal with this?
That's not the issue.
You brought up colonialism.
You are talking about the Western view that they should stay where they belong.
I'm saying that it seems to me to be much wiser that if you have a very large humanitarian crisis in, for instance, Syria, you try to make sure that people remain in the area. This isn't say all of them, but it is more likely. I absolutely agree they do. I've seen it firsthand.
Look at Turkey, 3.5 million refugees. Look at Lebanon and Jordan per capita.
What I'm suggesting to you is,
in fact, in Lebanon, you've got 1 in every 4 person living in that country is a Syrian refugee.
Absolutely.
So to suggest they're not doing very much is just being misleading, being dishonest.
Believe me, I'm not being misleading. And I said from the outset that I agree with the point that most refugees remain in the area. And I said that I think that that's a good idea. I'm suggesting to you that I think it's better that people, for instance, fleeing Syria, end up in the countries around Syria in order to be able to return to their country than putting them in Norway.
But they will return. You are suggesting that they don't want to return. Who in their right mind,
if they had the option, when did I say that?
And we will hear from a refugee, if they had the option to return, of course they'd want to return.
I didn't say they wouldn't.
They leave everything behind. But you seem to also be oblivious to another important fact that I just want to throw at you before we go to a video clip that I want to show you. It's, what about the moral responsibility, though, of Western countries that have contributed to the destabilization of the region, the meddling, the military interventions, not to mention the arms sales that continue as we speak? What about that?
Do you want me to answer that? Okay, I'll answer that one frankly. Nobody denies, for instance, the disaster of Iraq. But who are the people who intervened most in Syria?
Isn't just Iraq.
Hang on. Let me answer it. Who intervened most in Syria? It wasn't America. It wasn't Britain. It's Iran, Russia. It's, among others, countries, including the one we're in and others around the Gulf here.
Before we got to Syria, we had Iraq, we had Libya, we had many
countries in this neck of the woods were much more involved in the Syrian civil war than my country was.
Well, you're also
so do you want to take some responsibility for that? Do you want to take more refugees here in Qatar? Do you want to take more in the Gulf?
No one is immune to any sort of criticism. But we're talking about the Western countries, the British countries, the British countries.
What did Britain do in Syria?
We're talking about these governments that you seem to suggest should be immune.
No, when did I suggest that?
Absolved of any responsibility.
When did I suggest that?
I want to get to the other point that you make, and it's an important one, Douglas Murray. You suggest that we need to actually balance between two very important virtues, two important concepts of mercy toward the refugee and justice toward your own citizens. Let's take a quick look at this instance involving refugees.
Do you feel anyone for us? We are the Syrians. About 300. Sir, I give you the number of Malta authority because you are near Malta.
Hello.
Yes.
About 100 children and 100 women and maybe 100 men. Please hurry. Water is coming into it. The boat is going down. We are dying. 300
Yes,
persons.
you have called Malta. You have called Malta.
Don't throw us. Captain, run away.
Call Malta. Call Malta.
I have no enough account on the mobile. It will cut. Please. You have
Yes.
my number now. You call me, you please.
That was twice as close to an Italian island as it was to Malta. But again, this idea that, you know, we have to safeguard our values, where does mercy fit in that? Not just mercy, but the obligation, the legal obligations of states towards refugees.
I'd suggest that we all make sure we don't shift responsibility. There is a responsibility to everyone. That would include the state we're standing in now, wouldn't it? It would include all the states in this region. It would include the brother states. It would include the Ummah. It would include everybody. It wouldn't just be the Italians. Now, the Italians, by the way, and let me just finish this point.
That's a valid issue, but let me respond to it, because
let me
you
finish
mentioned the
point.
states of the
Because
region. It's a valid issue, but unlike the European countries, allow me to just make this point, unlike the European countries,
I'll respond to 2 points.
they are not parties to the 1951 Refugee Convention. So the legal obligations are, well, it's just a fact.
Conveniently, isn't it?
But I'll let you carry on.
But this means that countries that are signatories to the Refugee Convention get more blame and more assumption that they are going to have to hold more of the burden than countries that didn't. And I'm suggesting to you that nobody should be able to absolve themselves from blame. But if you go to Italy now, and I don't know when you were last there, but it is not the case that this is going well in Italy, either for the migrants who are arriving or for the Italian population.
Isn't it because the resources are not being poured into this? Let's face it, the policies are not there, the resources aren't there.
I see these people when they arrive, I follow their stories. It is not the case just that they don't, you know, the local populations in Italy I've been to Lampedusa, I've seen the boats coming in. The local populations are extremely generous. They are extremely kind to the people. Most of the populations in Europe, let's just not have this idea that Europeans are somehow incredibly cold-hearted. Countries in Europe have taken in a lot of people, and they are trying to deal with a very big problem very swiftly.
Question, please.
Hi, I'm Hamad Abu Hawash. I'm a senior at Georgetown University. And my question is to Mr. Douglas Murray. And before I ask my question, I just want to say, you said no sound bites, but then you said the developing world cannot move to the developed world. I don't know what that's about.
I said it before.
My question is, since you brought up migration from the developing world, I'd like to ask you this. Every year, the developed world sends about $300 billion of aid to the developing world, but the developing world sends back trillions in debt repayments to the developed world. Now, don't you think that this is the main reason why migrants are moving to Europe? Because money is moving out of the developing world. Wealth is leaving the developing world and moving to the developed world, to build on what Lamont Hill said. Don't you think this is why people are moving to the Western world, to the developed world?
Well, no, I don't. Again, I repeat the fact there are no simple answers. And if it was simply the fact that you could, I don't know, do a debt default or something and solve the whole migration issue, then that would be great. But it just isn't the case. You think that if for instance, all African countries were allowed to default on debt, that they'd become burgeoning, flourishing societies? You think that the problem across, for instance, sub-Saharan Africa isn't just unbelievable greed and theft by politician after politician? You think that if you just wrote off the debt, that would stop being an issue and everyone would become transparent and clean in their dealings with money? I mean, the problems are much deeper than this. They're much deeper than just a simple solution like that. As, if I may just add quickly to the previous two comments, the late, very distinguished American diplomat Daniel Patrick Moynihan had a wonderful rule he came up with, known as Moynihan's Law, where he said that human rights, claims of human rights violations often happen in exactly inverse proportion to human rights violations. That is, you hear about them in the countries that are most free. And before long, you can end up with the presumption that the most free countries are the ones who are most abusive of human rights. And this happens with the case when we talk about our leaders and the ones, it's all very well. We can talk about the Trump administration, we can talk about the democracies and so on for all we like. We can all make criticisms, and we all should. But, okay,
briefly,
Mr. Putin, what are you going to do about him? What are you going to do about the mullahs in Iran? What are you going to do about the House of Saud in Saudi Arabia? You see, what we end up with is this situation. We go, oh, Mr. Trump, Mr. Trump. We can all do that. Believe me, I can riff on
But
Trump
again, you're being
all
quite
day.
selective, aren't
What
you?
are you going to do about the people you can't do anything about? Are you going to ignore them? Are you going to give them a pass? Or are you
there's
just going to
something called-
enjoy beating up on the democracy?
I hate to have to interrupt you. There's
So I'm going to talk briefly about, my mother's experience as an immigrant, and I want to touch here on something that Malcolm on Hill said, this power of education and telling people how refugees fit into the wider context of economic development. Here's why I'm very skeptical about that. Because when my mother arrived in the UK and her parents arrived in the UK, people still called them dirty packies. When she had graduated from Oxford University, she was still a brown person who was not seen as a citizen, right? So to what extent can we really sell this idea that being educated or fitting X, Y, and Z criteria is what you need to do as a refugee for people to humanize you? The inherent problem with these people is that they don't humanize you. You can't fulfill your oppressor's criteria so that they see you as human. So
the
how do you humanize people?
Dehumanizing refugees. Thank you very much. And with this, let me go to you, Douglas Murray, because much of your argument, Douglas, seems to be about the us versus them, the fact that, we have our own values, our own Britishness, our own virtues, and they will come to our shores with their values, their traditions. You seem to almost suggest that they come to your countries with a lesser breed of values.
No, I don't think I said that at any point, and that's another time you've tried to put something in my
Well,
mouth.
So when you
but
talk
I'll
about
add
the
that to
difference in
list.
values, what do you suggest?
Look, first of all, I didn't say that. I said that there are challenges because we do know that there are challenges, and let's just be frank about this. I mean, for instance, I've been in the Gulf for the last week or so. I see more burqas in my home city of London than I have seen in the Gulf in recent days, certainly here in Doha. Now, I can't say I'm delighted by the sight of more and more burqas in London. Do I feel any hatred of the people who wear them? Of course not. Of course not. But I can't say I'm elated by it. And definitely there are times I think, what percentage of burqas in this area becomes like not that pleasant for everyone else?
But again, is it all down to burqas? Because again, you're not asking people with other traditions whether they care about the sight of people drinking alcohol or showing up in bikinis. Again, it's a very
we could in Britain.
Western-centric viewpoint.
I'm not. I have to say, you're going to bark up the wrong tree if you think you're going to persuade a Brit that we should stop drinking alcohol because of people arriving in our country. I mean, that's not going to happen. These things are all a bit of give and take.
That you bring your own traditions that don't quite fit with theirs.
Well,
they don't.
Yeah, there are, as I said, and before we got all confrontational, which you did from the get-go, I said what the problem is here is that these things are all rubbing against each other. And in that situation, you have to work out what things you're willing to give up, which things you're willing to compromise on, and which ones you're not. You're not going to persuade the Brits to massively change their culture. But let me just make the point. Every single society has certain aspects of it doesn't want to give up. This one will. In Qatar, this one will. Everyone does. So please don't try to make this a kind of bigoted European thing.
Which of your
That would be
values
a very,
are you
very
most
dishonest
afraid
way
to
to.
lose?
That would be a very.
This host, she's a crazy woman. That's what I'll first say. Because she's just making different assumptions and putting weights in Douglas Murray's mouth. It's a very, very crazy thing to say. Like, that is why I support immigration, but the reason why there's a limit to it. If you are an immigrant in any country in the world, you don't bring your culture to overrule the culture of the country you are living in. It is never done anywhere. It is never. Do you understand? The British people are very, very open to immigrants. They are very, very accepting. They accept immigrants a lot. Especially these asylum seekers. They accept immigrants a lot. So this lady doing some cook and boo story, saying some bullshit right here, some BS about the British should stop drinking alcohol because immigrants came into the country because they're what? They're Muslims. So they should stop their culture because of immigrants. It makes no sense. It's a very, very stupid statement to say. There is no country who does that. Qatar itself has rules that they follow. You understand? Because an immigrants come in, that doesn't mean they will change their rules because of the immigrants. It's an absurd statement that woman made. Do you get? So every time she has been talking, she's always trying to talk over Douglas Murray. The host keep on interrupting Douglas Murray every single time. If you ask him a question, give him the space to answer. Don't interrupt him. And also, it's a very bigot statement for you to open your mouth and say that the British should change their culture because of immigrants. It's a very absurd thing. See, any country you are going to, if either be in Germany, if you have to go to Germany like right now, you have to learn the language. You have to try adapt to that culture. That is how it's done. Even if you have to bring your culture, it should not be that you're trying to overrule the German culture because of your own culture. It is never done in any way. Even in the US, should not be tolerated. In the UK, it should not be tolerated. British is one of the most acceptable country or nation I've ever seen in my life. They tend to accept people a lot. I'm telling you the truth. Dr. Murray shattered this woman. Like, he destroyed her premise. Everything she was saying BS. And the first guy who asked a question about the upper nation are taking more funds from the lower nation and stuff like that. It's not about money that can solve this immigration issue. It's not money. It's about the greed of the country you are coming out from. Because some of these countries, people that are trying to flee for their country is not a peaceful place. Either they have dictator, or they have drug lord, or the country is very extremely like low income country. So they need a better life. You fleeing to another country is because it's for a better life. Anyone who leave their hometown to another country, mostly for better life or for tourism. But mostly, if you want to immigrate to another country, it's for better life. So you can't carry yourself from where you live to another place and trying to change the culture. It is never done. It should never be allowed. Because the country you're coming from, there is a shithole. If you carry that culture to the country you're going to right now, you're immigrating to, that country too will be a shithole. Do you understand? And you will still want to leave that country to go to another country, and you still carry your own culture there again. So it's a very, very annoying statement to use. It's a very, very annoying statement. Qatar has policy. Qatar has rules. If you come to Qatar like this now, they don't say alcohol. Do you understand? But if you go to Britain, they do say alcohol. Why? It's because cultural differences. Muslims don't drink alcohol. British is full of Christians and some atheists. They don't drink alcohol. So you can't impose your rights and your culture to another man's. I love how Douglas Murray shattered her, destroyed her premise totally, guys. Comment down below what you think about this video. Give us a thumbs up. Share this video to as many as can. Subscribe to our channel, guys. I will definitely see you guys in our next video. Make sure you stay safe.